a larger narrative that has begun to emerge. There are now strong indications that Vice President Cheney's office instructed officials to use torture to produce confessions that Iraq and al-Qaeda had links. Keep in mind, the waterboarding of terror suspects began in 2002 when the Bush-Cheney administration was trying to pivot from 9/11 and sell the public on a war with Iraq. This week, Lawrence Wilkerson, Colin Powell's former chief of staff, wrote, quote, "What I have learned is that as the administration authorized harsh interrogation in April and May of 2002, well before the Justice Department had rendered any legal opinion, its principal priority for intelligence was not aimed at preempting another terrorist attack on the United States, but discovering a smoking gun linking Iraq and al-Qaeda." Joining us now is Democratic strategist Chris Kofinas and Republican strategist Ron Christie. Ron, Wilkerson's argument is backed up by the waterboarding approach of two suspects in U.S. custody who were focused first on Iraq and al-Qaeda connections, not terror plots. What was going on there?
I can't speak to that. Obviously, Mr. Wilkerson's come out with his rendition of what the facts are now that he believes them to be. I find it very interesting as a member of the administration, if he was so concerned or if he thought that there was not a causal link, that he waited until well after the administration's time in office had ended to make these allegations. So we'll see where they go, but I just don't think there's any basis in fact with what he had to say.
Well, here's the basis in fact for why we're doing it. Full element number one, congressional intelligence documents reveal that Ibn al-Shaikh al-Libi, under normal interrogation, said there were no al-Qaeda Iraq contacts. Vice President Cheney's office ordered enhanced techniques, including waterboarding. Libby made a confession and the waterboarding stopped. Libby's confession was later determined to be false. When Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, one of the 9/11 masterminds, was captured in 2003, a Senate Select Intelligence report determined, quote, questions regarding al-Qaeda's ties to the Iraqi regime were among the first presented to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed following his capture. Chris Kofinas, whether you call it torture or enhanced interrogation techniques, do you think the Bush-Cheney administration used this stuff to squeeze out evidence, regardless of its accuracy, that would help sell the war in Iraq?
Well, it seems based on these reports that that's the case. And what's, I think, truly heinous about this is that they were using these enhanced interrogation techniques not to, as their initial rationale to prevent this ticking time bomb scenario, but for political reasons, to come up with information, tortured information, in order to basically sell a war that we didn't need to fight. I mean, this, I think, is a stunning example and a telling example of how the Bush administration and how the vice president basically looked at torture. To them, it was a political tool. It wasn't a national security tool. It was a political tool. And that is what's so troubling about these reports.
Ron, do you think that the Obama administration has made the United States less safe by changing the torture policy?
I think certainly any time that you broadcast to your enemies the extent to which you're willing to go to bring out information, they can train against that, they can prepare against it. I think it's made it a little less safe for the United States in that regard because the enemy knows what we're willing or not willing to do. Did
the Bush-Cheney administration then make it less safe for the United States when it was broadcast that they were changing the enhanced interrogation techniques and there were none done from 2005 and 2009? I mean, if the idea is that torturing or waterboarding, whatever you want to call it, was essential to security, why did the Bush-Cheney administration not do it in their second term?
Well, I think what you found, David, in the days right after 9/11 and the first couple of years after 9/11 when the enhanced interrogation techniques were used primarily, we did get information that was valuable. It wasn't just the Bush administration saying that. It was Democrats. It was Leon Panetta more recently saying that we did gain valuable information for that. So to suggest now that, oh, for goodness sakes, in 2005 you didn't do it, the American government used enhanced interrogation techniques when it was determined that they had high-value information and that information saved lives. It's interesting, however, that the Obama administration resists releasing those reports that detail how those enhanced interrogation techniques saved American lives.
Chris Kofinas, you get the last word.
Well, I think this is, this whole saga of what happened during the Bush administration, I think when you put in the right context, you have an administration that basically was willing to do anything in order to fight a war that we didn't need to fight. I mean, these reports, if they get further documented, I think is probably some of the most damning evidence towards the Bush administration and basically what they, and the rationale and the logic they used to fight and invade Iraq. It is really disturbing, and I would say this is one clear area that we should have further investigation in, because this is where I think they crossed the line, among many lines they crossed, but this one in particular is really disturbing.
Chris Kofinas, Democratic strategist, Ron Christie, Republican strategist. Friends both, thank you both for coming on. Good to see you. We appreciate it.
Thanks, David.